When I was 7 years old, my father gave me a pair of shoes that were too big for my feet. "They will fit you next year," he said with a tired smile. I still remember how carefully he cleaned those old shoes before giving them to me. They were not new. The white color had already turned gray, and one side was slightly torn. But to me, they looked beautiful because they came from him. My father was a construction worker in a small town. Every morning before sunrise, he left our tiny house with dust already covering his old jacket. His hands were rough like broken stone, and his face always looked tired. But whenever he saw me, he smiled as if he carried no pain at all. We were poor. Not the kind of poor where you just have less than others. We were the kind of poor where dinner sometimes became tea and bread. The kind where rain entering through the roof felt normal. The kind where my father secretly skipped meals so I could eat. But as a child, I didn't understand sacrifice. I only understood embarrassment. At school, other children laughed at my clothes. "Did you wear the same shirt again? Your shoes look dead." Sometimes they laughed at my father, too. One afternoon, I saw him picking up leftover vegetables from a market after sellers closed their shops. I quickly hid behind a wall because my classmates were nearby. That night, my father cooked soup while humming softly. "Eat more," he said. "I'm not hungry," I answered coldly. He looked at me quietly. "You should eat. You're growing." I suddenly exploded. I hate this life. The spoon in his hand stopped moving. I hate being poor. I hate this house. I hate everything. My father lowered his eyes. For a moment, the room became painfully silent except for the sound of rain outside. Then he smiled gently. "I'm sorry." That was all he said. Not anger. Not shouting. Just, "I'm sorry." And somehow that hurt more. Years passed. I became a teenager, and life only became harder. My father worked longer hours. Sometimes he came home bleeding from small injuries, pretending it was nothing. One winter evening, he returned home soaked from rain. I noticed he was coughing badly. "You should rest," I told him. He smiled. "Rest is expensive." The next morning, he still went to work. That night, I heard him coughing again behind the thin wall of our house. I couldn't sleep. For the first time, I realized my father was growing old. One day, my school announced a fee for final exams. It was more money than we had. "I'll handle it," my father promised. But days passed and nothing changed. Finally, I exploded again. "You always say that, but nothing changes." He stayed silent. Then he walked into his room and returned with a small wooden box. Inside was my mother's necklace. She had died when I was very young. It was the only thing he had left from her. "I'll sell it tomorrow," he whispered. I froze. "You kept that for years. You need your education more." I saw his hands shaking while holding the necklace. That night, I cried silently for the first time because of him. The next morning, he sold it, and I took my exams. After graduating, I wanted to work immediately, but my father refused. "You will go to university." "We can't afford it." "We will." "How?" He smiled weakly. "I'll find a way." And somehow, he did. He worked day and night. Construction, cleaning, carrying heavy materials, fixing roads, anything. Sometimes he returned home unable to walk properly. But every month he paid my fees. I studied business in the city while he stayed alone in our old house. Whenever I called him, he always lied. I'm eating well. I'm healthy. Don't worry about me. But neighbors later told me the truth. Sometimes he only ate once a day. Sometimes he worked while sick. Sometimes he slept at construction sites because he couldn't afford transportation home. Still, every time I visited him, he smiled proudly. My son is becoming successful. One evening during my final university year, I came home unexpectedly. The house was dark. I found my father sitting alone with candles because electricity had been cut off. He quickly smiled when he saw me. "You came." But when he stood up, he nearly fell. "Dad, I'm fine." He wasn't. His face looked thinner. His hair had become almost completely gray, and his cough sounded worse. I took him to a hospital the next day. The doctor looked serious. He should have come earlier. My chest tightened. "What's wrong?" His lungs were badly damaged from years of dust and overwork. My father laughed softly. So dramatic. But I saw fear in his eyes. The doctor prescribed medicine, but treatment was expensive. I started working part-time while finishing university. I barely slept, but for the first time in my life, I understood my father. I understood exhaustion, sacrifice, fear, love. Months later, I graduated. When they called my name on stage, I searched the crowd desperately. And there he was, wearing his old jacket, clapping harder than anyone. Tears filled his eyes like he had just won the world. After the ceremony, he hugged me tightly. "You did it." "No, Dad," I whispered. "We did." Soon after graduation, I got rejected from many jobs. Again and again. Not enough experience. "We'll call you." We chose another candidate. I started losing hope. One night, I sat outside with my father. "I'm tired," I admitted. He nodded slowly. "You know, when you were little, I once worked for 14 hours carrying cement bags." I looked at him quietly. My body felt broken. I wanted to quit. "What happened?" He smiled. "Then I remembered your face." I felt tears burn in my eyes. "You were always my reason to continue." A month later, I finally got a small job at a company. The salary wasn't huge, but it was a beginning. I worked harder than everyone else. Early mornings, late nights, no excuses. Years passed. I got promoted, then promoted again. Eventually, I started my own business. At first, it failed badly. I lost almost everything. But this time, I didn't quit. Because every time life became painful, I remember my father walking home, exhausted yet still smiling. So I continued, again and again, until one day, everything changed. A big investor believed in my idea. My company slowly grew, then exploded. Within years, I became wealthy beyond anything I had imagined as a child. I bought cars, offices, beautiful clothes, luxury apartments. But none of it mattered as much as what I did next. I returned to our old neighborhood. The same broken roads, the same tiny houses, the same market where my father once picked leftover vegetables. I stopped in front of our old house. It looked even smaller now. My father sat outside in an old chair under the evening sun. Older, weaker, but still smiling. He looked surprised when he saw the expensive black car. Then he saw me step out. "My son." I walked toward him slowly, and suddenly I couldn't speak. because all I could see was every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every hidden pain, every silent apology. I knelt in front of him. "Dad," I whisper while crying, "we're not poor anymore." His eyes filled with tears. Then he touched my face gently like he used to when I was little. "I was never poor," he said softly. I looked at him, confused. He smiled through tears. "I had you." That moment broke me completely. A few weeks later, I bought him a beautiful home with a garden. The first morning there, he walked slowly through the grass, touching flowers with quiet wonder. "This is really ours." "Yes." He looked at the sky for a long moment. Then he whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. "Your mother would be proud." Years later, my father became very sick. I stayed beside him every day in the hospital. One night, while rain touched the window softly, he looked at me weakly. "You remember those shoes I gave you?" I laughed through tears. "The big ones." He smiled. "I was scared you'd hate me for giving you old things." I held his trembling hand tightly. "You gave me everything." His eyes slowly filled with tears. "I'm sorry for the hard life." "No," I whispered, crying harder. "Thank you for it. Because without that life, I would never have understood love." A few days later, my father passed away peacefully in his sleep. And for the first time since childhood, I felt truly poor. Years after his death, I became one of the richest businessmen in the country. People admire my success. They ask for interviews. They call me inspirational. But they never understood the truth. The strongest man I ever knew was not rich. He wore torn jackets, worked until his body broke, skipped meals silently, and loved his son more than himself. Even now, I still keep those old shoes in my office, not because they are valuable, but because they remind me where everything began. Whenever life becomes difficult, I look at them and remember a tired father smiling in the middle of poverty, trying to make his son's future bigger than his own pain. And every single time, I cry, "Thank you for watching." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Your support means everything and helps bring more emotional stories to life. See you in the next story.